Well, Italians are voting in a series of referenda around job protections and citizenship, including measures that would make it easier for children born in Italy and non-citizens to obtain citizenship. But the results could prove futile if the voter turnout is too low, as the Italian government has been leading calls for a boycott. Giada Zampano is a journalist who's been covering the story, and she joins me now from Rome. Giada, thank you so much for your time today. Firstly, what's the situation now with this referendum? Will there be a quorum for it to be valid in the first place, and one that could see residents allowed to apply for citizenship in 5 years instead of 10?
Actually, from how it looks right now, from the latest data we have from the Interior Ministry, it's really, really hard that this referendum is going to reach the required quorum, which is 50% plus one of the votes. And it looks like very, very far from what we know we are right now. According to the latest data, which are still partial and that we got yesterday late at 11 o'clock, only 22% of the Italians who were supposed to go to the vote actually cast their ballots. So we're really, really far from, the achievement of this referendum.
Yes, and then what's to blame for this? Is it purely because the Prime Minister told people to stay home and boycott the referendum altogether?
Actually, this played a role because obviously the government was against most of the issues regarding, the referendum. And so they openly campaigned for abstention, which is a problem in Italy because the latest election showed very high levels of abstentions among voters. So it was really, really hard to convince people to go to vote, especially because we are in the first early summer weekend with school closed. So many people ended up going to the beaches instead of voting. And also activists who worked and campaigned on this referendum noticed that the issues were very technical, were very complicated. So most of the voters didn't really know what this referendum was talking about, were the big issues at stakes in the referendum. And this also the media played a role because actually the media authority, the communication authority in Italy, Agcom, complained with the state broadcasters RAI that it actually downplayed the coverage on the referendum, so people was not really informed properly on what this referendum was about.
Yes, and from the government's perspective, this is not quite surprising because there is a Prime Minister there who does have a hardline stance on immigration in Italy, isn't it?
Exactly. Giorgia Meloni didn't make a secret about the fact that she didn't want people to go voting to this referendum. So she chose a very unusual position, saying, I'm going to go to the polling station, but will not collect the ballot papers. De facto, she participating in abstention because she didn't cast a vote in the end. And her government is a hard-right government with a pretty strong stance on what they call illegal migration. So they say that the current laws on citizenships are good enough, and that it's easy for foreigners who have been living in Italy for a while and been contributing to the Italian economy to become Italian citizens, which is exactly the opposite that opposition and activists are saying, because most of the foreigners who have been living in Italy and paying taxes and contributing to the economy for a while feel they are still not acknowledged as real Italian citizens.
Yes. Giada, what prompted this referenda, in particular the questions of immigration in the first place? Who triggered that?
It was actually a request that came from what we call the civil society, and unions were pretty strong in campaigning for the referendum because part of the referendum questions are actually about labor protection, which is another big issue in Italy because labor security was a very hot topic of debate in Italy in the past few years. So the opposition, the center-left opposition, was behind the referendum, was supporting the referendum, especially the part on labor, while the civil society and activists in the migration area and the migration issues were proposing and were supporting strongly and campaigning strongly for the referendum on citizenship. But probably there wasn't this huge awareness among Italians about the issues that were at stake.
Yes, but at the same time, Opposition groups are claiming that they will claim victory if the yes vote exceeds the current right-wing coalition support of the previous election. Will Italian voters, though, see it that way?
I don't think it will be easy to claim a victory if the turnout is really low, and it's especially if it's lower than 30%, which was pretty much the threshold that the opposition parties were indicating as the one that would be a success for them in terms of like reaching out to people and convincing them to vote. So I think they will try, obviously will try to say that if they reach 30%, that will be a victory for the referendum side, but in real terms, we will have to say it will be a defeat for democracy, because it means that we're confirming that the problem, the issue that Italians are not going to the polls anymore, and not in the past. So probably there could be an opportunity for discussing lowering the quorum in the future referendums, or review the laws about referendums, which should be probably revised in light of this tendency of not voting on issues that are not felt as really close to people or really determinant for people's lives.
Yes, and Giada, what else was at stake in this referenda beyond immigration issues?
The labor laws are a pretty important issue in Italy because obviously they regard many people in Italy who feel not safe while they are at work. So that was a big issue, and it was also an issue that was very divisive, and that's divided up the opposition and the left in Italy, because some of the leftist parties were even against the cancellation of part of the laws that were discussed in the referendum. So I have to say also that the center left in Italy didn't really play this very, this key role, and this didn't play a show of unity in this case, because they even got divided up on the labor issues, while they were a little bit more united over the citizenship.
Okay, Giada Zampano in Rome, thanks very much for explaining it all to us.
Thanks a lot for having me.